Mr. Massie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Cahill, you mentioned DTI technologies that are available for identifying and tracking drones. Can you describe that technology in a little more detail for us?
I'd be happy to. So detection, tracking, and identification kind of comes in a multitude of different flavors. You can do something like acoustic, where you basically listen to where the drone is, and you triangulate where it is from a series of sensors. You can do the same thing with looking at the RF emissions of the drone and its operator. So you actually can triangulate where the drone is, and in some cases, you can triangulate where the operator is and send law enforcement to go intercept. There are also cameras, radars, a multitude of other different ways that you can identify that there is something in the airspace and monitor how it is moving. In most of those cases, as long as you don't break into the radio frequencies and read the packets, you can stay clear of Title 18. But if you actually break in and determine who it is, et cetera, outside of that remote ID license plate, then you run afoul of the pen trap, wiretap, et cetera.
Are there any other laws that are getting in the way, or maybe they're not getting in the way, maybe those are good laws, but are there any other laws that impede these technologies to track drones? Ms. Ellman, I'll ask you that question.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you, Congressman. It's a great question. There's actually interagency guidance from August of 2020 that literally goes through line by line every single law that could potentially impede the use of counter-drone technologies, both detection and mitigation. We can get you that document. That's the best resource. But everything from laws that are meant to protect against hacking landline telephones or computer fraud and abuse or, sabotaging an aircraft could potentially apply. Various Title 18 and Title 49 provisions.
Mr. McLaughlin, what types of technologies do you use at your airport to detect and track and identify drones?
So right now, as I said, we've been using one technology in conjunction with TSA for about 6 years, and then we piloted another one. These are passive systems that allow us to identify UAS in our airspace and identify the location of the pilot so that we can follow up with them via a conversation.
And I know the air traffic controllers have a very difficult job, and we don't want to distract them from the things that they're tracking right now. How do you integrate those warnings and trackings with in the tower with the air traffic controllers? Is this a separate location where they're looking at this information, or how do they coordinate with air traffic control?
Right, so physically it's a separate location, but we're all in close proximity. We're always a phone call away. That's the way that the airport control center and the FAA towers work. We're always in connection. We're governed by an FAA-approved counter-UAS policy that's been in place for several years. And paramount in that policy is active communication when there isn't a threat. So quarterly, we get together with the FAA, with our airlines, with our airport stakeholders. We talk to each other, we compare notes, and we make sure that we always have those communication connections set up and available. In the event of an actual UAS threat, the first thing we do is determine whether that threat is credible, whether that threat is imminent, and whether it's going to affect our actual airspace as opposed to just our property boundaries. And when we think that there's an actual threat, we coordinate directly with the FAA tower. Now, many times we see visual sightings too through the FAA tower. So sometimes that communication comes to us from the FAA when we don't see something detected on our system.
And you mentioned that most of the ones that you've identified and tracked back to the operator haven't resulted in civil or criminal penalties. It's either somebody who doesn't understand that it shouldn't be doing it, they need talked to by law enforcement. But I want to ask all three of you, what are the civil and criminal penalties, Dr. Cahill, for operating in the airspace of an airport?
So in terms of the legal implications, there are a number of different rules in terms of the violating the airspace. You can be basically you're collecting information illegally in some of these cases in terms of in restricted airspace, et cetera. I would look to Ms. Ellman to give you the best overall view of what all the legal ramifications are. But if you are operating a drone over an airport, you are interfering with the operations of that airport. You are interfering with aircraft ability to operate. And so there are a lot of statutes associated with that particular thing. So it would be a case where you could send law enforcement to that person and charge them.
I'm pretty much out of time, but since she referred to you, Ms. Elman, can you tell us what penalties are?
Yeah, sure. So
Briefly.
it frankly just depends on kind of what the rule is that's being violated or what the law is that's being violated. You can't operate recklessly. You can't endanger the public. You can't be violating restricted airspace. So I'd be happy to follow up with you on particular criminal penalties that are appropriate for whatever, types of situations you're worried about.
Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Larson, you're recognized for 5 minutes.